talk about what's sort of top of mind for me, sort of at the most strategic level, how we think about the business. This is just unbelievable right now. We're living through the supply chain upheaval that we're experiencing. But supply chain management is something that has never been platformed, right? We have Workdays and ServiceNow and SAP and all these things. In supply chain management, we're pretty much an email, spreadsheet operation. And it just sucks. It is the absolute worst, right? And if you live in an environment where, things are an inch to the left, inch to the right, you can kind of, anecdotally observe, what the hell's going on. And yeah, you'll be wrong and it's costing you money, but it's not going to kill your company. Now it's different. First the pandemic, caused enormous supply chain upheaval. I remember talking to hospital supply chain companies like J&J, and they said, we send surgical kits, to hospitals, and then you have, an explosion of COVID, and they're not doing these procedures anymore. So all that product is going left, right, and center, and it's all in the wrong place. And the problem is, maybe you can get it right, but then the next day it's wrong again, right? Because the circumstances has changed. So you can no longer get by just sort of anecdotally observing what's going on. I call it sort of steering the ship by its wake, right? Because they're basically observing recent history, and then they try to extrapolate that as if that's reality. You just can't do that anymore. The spiking inflation does the same thing, right? People are shifting their buying patterns, right? They stop buying the discretionary stuff and shifting, their spending to what they have to have, and all of a sudden, wrong products, wrong place, wrong time, all that kind of stuff. So to start to data drive and to sort of parse reality and through data is going to become just standard, right? It's just really hard as an economy and these industries to get there really quickly, because it's not just data platforms, like Snowflake, that are incredibly capable. It's also the people that can really, master data sciences and really drive these kind of outcomes. So everything you saw this morning, this is our, strenuous effort, to drive technology into the marketplace to enable people, to do that, and not just hardcore data scientists, but also people, with more moderate, development skill set to be effective. But the hospital CEO wasn't interested, kind of weird, but hey, he wasn't interested. But he said, look, we're a hospital, we're into saving lives, we're into, quality of life, we're into, all these, very, very high-minded, things. And they're into cardiovascular disease. They're the biggest institution in the United States that deals with cardiovascular disease. And he says, look, we have generations of data, right? Clinical and genomic and diagnostic and demographic, massive amount of data. So it's like, what we want to do is, use the data resources that we have and create predictive outcomes. In other words, if we can figure out who is going to get cardiovascular disease at what time with what probability, right, then we have, the beginnings, of a strategy to go and deal with that, right? Because then we can also, through data, develop the certainty around protocols that will work for that particular person, given their unique makeup and so on, and know the probabilities that we can actually, either stave off disease altogether, or treat them early or treat them later or whatever it is. So people think that's what we mean by mission alignment. People think very differently, around data now than they ever have. And supply chain management is fundamentally a data problem. So as you get into these conversations, you start to realize these are all data problems, okay? The scale and size of this, I've had people say, if I can solve this problem, I have $2 billion to spend. So you want to try and size the market? I have no idea. But I know that if we can do it, the market will be there, right? So, there is just an insatiable appetite at this point, for achieving and pursuing, these kinds of initiatives.